Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. And it's been a good week, but a long week so far. I know it's only Tuesday, but I hope your week is going well. History starts soon. History's already happened, but welcome, David. How's it going, man? Hope you're having a good one. Yeah, this show, it's Adventures in History, and we talk history, and we do so in a way that is easy, and I like to think fun, and perhaps even enjoyable. But I know for some people, thinking history and enjoyable together, that just it doesn't work. You can't do those things. History is supposed to be boring, and I'm supposed to sleep in there, and they put history class right after lunch on purpose because they know that everybody's going to be half asleep in the first place. So can we talk about history? Can we talk about the history that is when you started this show tonight? Oh yeah, man. Like about 45 seconds ago, those were good times. I came in and I hit the button and then I did a little wave thing like this and I said hello everybody, and yeah, that was a special moment. And you being right there, David, is the first person the first person in the chat that was a sign that things were going to be great. Hey, a Figment, welcome. Hey, a Capacitor, history, interesting, nah. But also, history is always fun. What was it like back then? There aren't a lot of primary sources except for the recording that will be around. So I guess that we'll all have to. What is this? Beans? Toy Galaxy Beans emote. Okay. I was unaware that such a thing existed, but they are the musical fruit. So hello everybody and welcome. I hope you are all having a great week. I have been sort of, not necessarily snowed under, but really on top of working on this big sociology project that I'm doing right now to sort of wrap up this last class that I'm in for a sociology master's degree. And it has consumed a majority of my free time. Well, not majority of my free time. I'm still allowing myself a little bit of time every day to sort of not use my brain. But it's been a lot, especially during the summer when I'm supposed to be taking it easy. It just hasn't been super fun. But I am a lot of the way done with it. I still have a paper to write. But I had a phone call with my my committee chair yesterday, and he said that he was very pleased with the outcome that the work that I've done so far. I talked with him a little bit about the paper itself, and have a fairly good idea of what I need to do. I just got to do all the fun typing and, of course, all of the super awesome footnotes, because everybody loves citations, right? Citations are never fun, but this will be the last scholarly paper that I have to write for hopefully a long time. The college that I teach at does not require publication as part of my contract, so I am not required to conduct research for my job, but I still do. Because I like learning stuff. But anyway, so this is sort of the last big push. This is the the Ardennes offensive, if you will. We've been through the horrors, and now we've just got to get through this one more big horrible thing. Anyway, so it is viewer request night, and the last time we had a viewer request stream, our viewers chose the Meiji Restoration, which is a period of time in Japan that happens in the 1800s. Hey, Joey, welcome. Good to see you. And the sort of the overarching concept here is that the shoguns who had run Japan for, by various calculations, either 200 or maybe even as far as 450 or so years, are going to be overthrown, and the emperor, who had not completely been in control for quite some time in Japan, is going to become at least the nominal head of the government once again. And this is a really interesting time because it has a lot to do with a lot of things that people wouldn't normally associate with Japan. It has a lot to do with international travel and, of course, tradition and all sorts of outside players, which had not really been a big deal in Japan for quite some time. So without further ado, let us dive into... a little bit more ado, because I have gotten off of my my lackadaisical issue that kept me from doing basic things like maintenance for the channel, and we now have a lurk command. So if somebody wants to be so brave as to do a lurk, you will get to see the lurk command. I took a suggestion from Mythic Acrylic, one of the viewers here in the stream, and added a little bit of my own kind of Shane flair to it. So if you do decide to do the lurk, now you can do the lurk, because everybody else had one and I felt like I needed one too. Right? There was that one undergrad that wrote his whole paper and just left the author name and page number in parentheses because he was going to add citations later, and was like, not the best idea there. And then the day before it was due, he was frantic because he couldn't find his citations because each author had more than one source he was using. But yeah. Hey, Techman, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, so there's our lurk command. I think it's pretty cool. I think it fits. It's sort of keeping in step with the larger goofiness of the stream here. So I hope that gave everybody at least a little bit of a smile, maybe even a chuckle. All right, let's talk Meiji Restoration. So before we get super far into the Meiji Restoration, one of the things that we're going to have to talk about at least a little bit are these people called the Tokugawa. The Tokugawa were a clan of people from Japan, and they had taken over Japan under this guy named Tokugawa Ieyasu back around the early 1600s. And they had been in control since then. And we are currently going to pick up talking in the early 1800s. So the Tokugawa family had been in control for about 200 years. And the concept that the Tokugawa had tried to instill inside of Japan for those 200 years was one of basically pushing pause. They wanted to sort of freeze Japan in time. And if you were with us Thursday, you'll know that they didn't actually succeed very well in that, and that the Tokugawa era is also referred to as the Edo period, it's EDO, because they made a new capital at Edo, which is the modern-day city of Tokyo. But the Tokugawa were shoguns, they were military leaders, and they reorganized the government to be centered around this idea of a shogun. The word for that is bakufu. You'll hear me say bakufu quite a bit. So the word bakufu just means government run by a shogun. And that had been the norm inside of Japan for 200 years. They had tried to lock down social mobility. They did not like people moving back and forth between social classes. They had tried to basically freeze Japan from outside sources. They had tried to limit contact with outside sources. And here, when I say outside sources, I'm meaning mostly Korea and China, but also a little bit later on, European influence, especially as Europe begins to explore Asia. There are going to be a lot more Europeans showing up, trying to land in Japan, trying to trade with Japan, and the Tokugawa official stance is, we don't want your trade here. So they had tried their best to absolutely lock down Japan, isolate it, keep it basically like a frozen moment in time. Imagine putting Japan in a cryogenic stasis. He'll most likely be eaten by a Gru. Hey, Aphid, welcome. Tiptoes past the scattered bones of fallen adventurers and into a cave and falls asleep in the lap of the black beast of Carbanor. Look at the bones! So, by the time we get to the 1800s, the Tokugawa are going to have a stranglehold on Japan, but that is going to begin to change, especially in the early 1800s, and it's going to start changing with a guy named Emperor Kokaku. So Kokaku is this guy. This is Emperor Kokaku. I did mention him briefly in our discussion last week. So for those of you that might not have been with us last week, we were discussing art and culture of the Edo period. And that just happened to work out very nicely as a transition from last week's material to today's material. So it was...
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Fidelia, thank you so much for that subscription. Very much appreciated. Thank you to everybody who subscribes. I really seriously do appreciate that. I want you to know that I don't run out and buy myself super treats with that money. I have a running budget, and I put all of the money that I get from Twitch right back here into the channel. So if you see the little guy down there in the corner, little Adventure Shane, and the new layout here, that was money that came from Twitch. I used money that I got from subscriptions and donations to pay artists. One of the frequent artists that hangs out in the channel here, colored by Emmy. The Spartacus emote that that we just shared because of Fidelia's subscription, that was commissioned and paid for by Twitch money. So I use that to make the stream better. The light setup that I have, the camera that I have, that is all from the proceeds of Twitch itself. So I really do try my best to make the community look better with the money that I get, instead of just going out and having a fancy steak dinner and never calling you again, right? Where's Lambo? I don't know. And hey, a la Snow? Or is it A la Snow? Oh man. Or is it A-L as now? Alas now. I am so horrible at figuring out where the breaks are. But welcome, my friend. I hope that you're having a good one. All of the money goes right into the expensive Gundam Wing hobby. So, Capacitor, I actually have a second roster for that. That is specifically just Gundam donations. I do, when I build Gundams, I do take donations occasionally, but I keep that separate from the sort of general stream stuff. So I and to be fair, I scrutinize my spending a lot. I'm a big budgeter. I am all about being frugal. I'm in a bit of a predicament because the last model kit that people donated towards has been out of stock for about 6 months now because of COVID shutdowns and the Bandai plant stopping all production. And I've been super diligently scouring the internet, even getting on Japanese hobby sites for shops that are run in Japan to see if I can get stuff exported without spending twice as much as the model's worth. It's been an ongoing issue. But I do use donations toward Gundam stuff, but I have a specific donation goal for those, and that money is for Gundam stuff. So there's a difference. It doesn't get double dipped, if you will. And I'll be perfectly clear about what I do with all of this stuff. I don't have any problem being transparent. I am not the government. I'll tell you where your money goes. All right. So we were talking about Tokugawas, and we talked about Emperor Kokaku, who is, again, this guy right here. What is up with Kokaku? Well, Kokaku rules from 1789 to 1817. What's going on with his hat? That's the part of his hat back here that's sticking up is where his top knot would be. This is, of course, you have the, like the top knot where you shave this kind of part of your head and then you grow the back part out and you kind of fold it back over and pull the top knot and kind of, you've seen that. You can check around some of the Korean sites. If you tell me what it is you're looking for, you don't know have it. But the few stores... Oh, that's actually... I'll take you up on that, Figment. If you are... yes, it's where he hides his wisdom. It's under the cool hat. So, yeah. He is emperor from 1789 to 1817. And I mentioned last week that this was a really, really long rule. And one of the reasons why it's sort of remarkable that he made it that far is that the Tokugawa, when the Tokugawa assumed control inside of Japan, they wrested the power away from the imperial clan and then sort of started dictating how the imperial clan was supposed to operate. And there had been multiple instances, almost a dozen instances, where a sitting shogun would effectively force an emperor or an empress to give up the throne and allow a younger person to take over as emperor. It's where he hides his chocolate snacks. It's where all of the contraband comes in, where they're actually doing secret trading with the Europeans, but he's hiding it under his hat. Right? So the fact that Kokaku was able to reign for 37 years was a mark of his own resolute nature, but it was also a sign that the Tokugawa leadership was beginning to flag. And this is especially going to be true during a couple of situations during the reign of Kokaku, one being a really bad famine, to the point where there were scandals and riots in cities about where the food was going to go. The imperial household, Kokaku himself, began to give out his own money to help the common people of Japan. And this was a very calculated move because the imperial budget was set at that time by the shogun. So he did not have an overabundance of money. Kokaku did. And he was basically giving to the people as a sign of as trying to get back in the game. This is going to slowly begin to reassert imperial presence. And he's going to be really important because he is able to do that and not only gets away with it, people start recognizing like, oh man, the shoguns are kind of fumbling around in this big situation, but it seems like the emperor really has it together. Like the emperor really knows what's going on. Kokaku, you're a good dude, and you're spending your money on the people the way that it should be. And it's fair to note that at this time, the leadership of the Tokugawa Bakufu had become particularly fancy. They were living in big palaces. They were wearing super nice clothes. And a lot of the daimyo that were supporting them had transitioned from military leaders to what is effectively a bureaucracy position. And they were reaping the benefits of not having to pay taxes. So they were, of course, also very rich. And this is where a lot of people are going to start drawing a disassociative line between themselves and the people running their country. They're going to say, those people don't really look like us. They live different lives. They demand things. They tax us to death, yada, yada, yada. So Kokaku is an important moment that's going to set Japan off towards new directions. And, well, that's going to be a bigger deal when we get to the reign of Tokugawa Ieyasu. Tokugawa Ieyasu is going to be one of the last shoguns that really has any sort of sole uniform power. And he is not going to be particularly lucky. Here he is. That's the break screen. Here he is. This is Tokugawa Ieyasu. He is going to be, like I said, kind of the last really big shogun. And when he takes over, one of the things that has become, or had become, a really significant issue within Japan was Western contact. And when I say Western here, I mean the Europeans, especially the British, the French, and the Netherlands, and the United States. It's fair for us to remember that in the late 1700s, the United States was fairly new, but by the time we get to the early 1800s, the United States is approaching this thing called manifest destiny and the idea that they have the right to expand basically forever, especially over here into Asia, where the United States was beginning to have an interest in opening trade. But it's mostly the British and the French who have big empires expanding over here in Asia. Of course, the British have India. The French had Southeastern Asia, which is the region today which we call, or the countries of Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia. The British and the French and the Dutch all had territory here in China. And Japan was sort of the only area that had not really been opened to trade. No chocolatey. Yeah, he did not have chocolatey snacks. Maybe he had already eaten all of his, and he then ruined his supper, which is sort of why he looks a bit more festively plump. But you could see here his hairstyle. This would have been the same sort of hairstyle that Emperor Kokaku had, which is why the hat sort of sat on a kick. Anyway, so Ieyasu is going to be faced with the growing threat of Western presence. And especially the British and the French, who are really, really, really trying to get into Japan to trade. And there were some people inside of Japan that were not necessarily completely opposed to this. Some people were not flatly of the opinion that all Western contact needed to be avoided. And part of this was because they had seen what happened in China. If we look at what happened in China during this period, there were really big conflicts between the British and the Chinese, and then later the British and the French and the Chinese, which was the First and Second Opium War. And European industrialism had absolutely flatly crushed the Empire of China. And there were people within Japan that knew what was going on in China, even though they weren't really supposed to, and did not want Japan to be the next group that got crushed. But Tokugawa Ieyasu only saw the West as a threat, and he is going to pass something called the Edict to Repel Foreign Vessels. And he passes this in 1825. And the goal here is literally, you can't land a ship in Japan if you are not from Japan. They're hidden under his kimono, yes. Hey, a visual nomad, welcome, welcome. Yes, we are talking Japan. Soul Lighter, welcome. We are talking about the Bakufu's downfall. We are currently on Tokugawa Ieyasu, and we just talked about the Edict to Repel Foreign Vessels. And this was, again, it was a move to just flatly and completely isolate Japan. Here's the thing. It didn't really work. What it did was keep European vessels from openly seeking trade, but there are weird things that happen. You know, this period of time that we're dealing with, there was still a lot of questionable activity going on in sailing. So you could get stuck in the middle of a storm and need to seek a safe harbor. Could you go to Japan? The answer is no. well, the Japanese tell you no. You are a ship that gets lost. Maybe your navigation systems and your compass gets broken and everything is just a mess. And you see a port and you are running out of fresh water and food. You need to pull into this port. Can you pull into that port? Well, Japan said no. This was literally a blanket ban, and it still didn't really work all the way because you can't stop everything, right? The world is just too big and too crazy. Plus, again, the shoguns are starting to lose a step. And this is going to be especially true when we get to the next shogun, Tokugawa Ieyasu, who... No, that's Inari. Hold on. Ba-doop-ba-doop. Here we go. He definitely has no chocolates because he is sad. Maybe he's eating Sour Patch Kids because he has a sour face. Or maybe he's... I don't know what's another sour candy. Warheads? Lemon Drops? Or maybe he just got denied chocolate. Alas. Anyway, so Tokugawa Ieyasu is going to be... When he takes over, he's going to have a mess on his hands because there are a lot of people inside of Japan that are becoming very anxious about this growth of Western influence, right? What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? What's the point? And during his reign, there's also going to be a really big collapse of the economy. Oh man, no chocolate. He has no chocolate. That's why he's so sad. So the economy starts to tank, and Tokugawa Ieyasu's response to that is probably one of the worst responses that he could have made. He says that the problem with Japan is not that Japan had not westernized or modernized. The problem with Japan was that they had become too soft and that they needed to go back to the way that Japan used to be. So he is going to orchestrate a series of reforms called the Tenpo reforms. And these begin coming out in 1842. And these are going to be really, really strict. So they are they're called sumptuary laws, which is a fancy word for rationing stuff, keeping you from being able to get access to certain types of goods, making you spend your money on certain things. Basically, he wants to try to cut back on the excess. He wants to show that he's taking the economic problem seriously and that everybody just needs to tighten the belt, or the obi. Japanese waist sashes are called obi. Tighten up your obi, and we're all going to get through this together. We're all just going to have to stop buying the chocolate. Maybe that's why he's so sad, because he banned the chocolate. But another thing that he's going to start doing is a lot of these laws and the Tenpo reforms are also going to target a specific class. And that class is the merchant class. If you were with us on Thursday, the merchant class is, at that time period, one of the richest of the classes. They were technically the lowest of the social ladder, but because of the growth of a middle class inside of Japan, economically speaking, the merchants had basically become the nouveau riche. And part of the Tenpo reforms are targeted specifically at the merchants because you can't wear fancy clothes anymore. You can't go appear in public at the Kabuki theater dressed up in finery anymore, because it's a sign of excess, and it's a sign of the rot that he said was the problem. Down with the merchants and their capitalism, exactly. We need to turn back to the way things used to be. We need to go back to simple living and honest living and humble living and forget all of you merchants and yada, yada, yada. You see where this is going, right? It should not really be much of a surprise that the people of Japan absolutely hated the Tenpo reforms. They thought that this was some of the worst idea ever. And the merchants especially hated it because they knew that by basically cutting out their entire existence, he was trying to get rid of them. And it just so happens that the merchant class was one of the biggest pushes behind this idea of, hey, let's trade with the West. Let's talk to the Europeans. Let's talk to the Americans. Because they were the ones that were going to stand to make a ton of money off of it. So he's not done yet. Because the tempo reforms are going to be the first round. The next round is going to be a series of land reforms. And you go, why does he need to reform land? Well, here's the thing. Ieyoshi was smart enough to understand that to fully block out trade, you needed to control the largest cities. The big cities with the big ports were the ones that were going to be the destinations for traders to begin with. You know, if you're going to trade with Japan, you don't want to go to some tiny little island in the middle of nowhere. You want to go to the capital city where the people have disposable income. Hey, Cave, welcome. And the land reforms that Ieyoshi is going to push through are designed to take land away from specific daimyo, specifically the ones that he was not friends with. They were called Tozama, or outsider daimyo. And the land that the Tokugawa clan is going to seize is mostly land in and around Edo and Osaka. These are two of the biggest trading hubs inside of Japan, and they're two of the biggest cities in Japan. So by taking over all of the land in Edo and Osaka, what's going to happen here is he's going to be able to directly watch everything that happens. He's going to know what's coming in and what's coming out. Nobody's going to be able to sneeze in Edo. You're not going to be able to pull a British ship into the port of Edo. You're not going to be able to pull a British ship into Osaka. He's going to know all of this stuff. Well, here's the thing. This really flippin' ticks off the daimyo. Now, the daimyo, by the way, are the sort of the high-level nobility. There were about 180 of them at the time. They were the super big land-owning individuals that had a lot of money. Again, they used to be military leaders, sort of your field generals, but they had transitioned into more of a regional governor status over the time where there weren't really any wars. So Edo and Osaka are shut down, and this is going to be pretty bad. But then he's not done either. He begins actively banning anyone inside of Japan studying Western ideology. So there had been some people, especially in what is referred to as the west of Japan. You might consider it the south. But the region over here, the region that is closest to Korea, three of the big realms down there, here I should probably type these out, are going to be really interested in this this sort of Western ideology. So we have the Chosu, the Satsuma, and the Saga. Ooh, should hit enter here. You'll break it in. No test this time. All right, Joey, enjoy your lurk. All right, so these three big domains are headed by daimyo, and again, they're mostly this region sort of on the southern and western part of the big island of Honshu. This region right down in here. It's pretty far away from the capital, and it had been land that had been given to the outsider daimyo because it was really far away and it was sort of out of the loop of everything. But these people were not friendly with the Tokugawa. The clan that ran the Chosu domain was a clan called the Mori, M-O-R-I. And they had been plotting since the Tokugawa took over on how to get rid of the Tokugawa. So when especially Western military technology became something to learn about, there were people down here that had started studying Western military tactics. Things like French military tactics of Napoleon, things like how to make cannons, things like how to build bigger blast furnaces that are going to properly allow you to do giant sheets of metal that you might use to make things like ironclad warships or later on steamships. And there were people down in this area that the Tokugawa knew were not their friends that were studying a lot of this Western technology, especially Western military technology. So Yoshi goes, no more. You can't study that stuff. You can't do any of that. No more Western thought, no more Western study, no more. Well, these particular 3 domains here, the Chosu, the Satsuma, and the Saga, they don't really follow this. They continue to very sneaky-like do research. They continue to modernize as much as they can without drawing a lot of attention to themselves. And that's an important fact to remember, because that's going to come back to bite the Tokugawa in a bit. So around this time, something had changed in the world. And that big things that had changed was the USA, United States of America. By the middle of the 1800s, the United States had begun building itself an empire. There's just no other way of saying it. I know that a lot of people don't like the idea of the American empire because there's this sort of negative connotation to empire. There's a negative connotation to the American empire. It's okay to say it. The Americans acted imperially. They were trying to take over as much land as they could. They were wiping out native populations. They were committing genocide, all of that stuff that other imperial powers did. Guess what? The United States was right there in the middle of it. That would be a great topic for a future viewer request, American imperialism. Anyway, just saying. So America was really interested in Japan because America was ultimately interested in China. America did not have a very strong foothold in China because China had already sort of been gobbled up by the British and the French and the Dutch, and by this point, even the Germans, and to another point, the Russians. So all of these other big European powers are building themselves an empire in China, and America didn't really have any hope of getting into China because they had no presence in the area. So they need a presence in the area, and that presence, they believe, is going to be Japan. And the president at the time is a guy named Millard Fillmore. And he is going to send a negotiator. And this is important. The guy was sent as a negotiator. President Fillmore directly told Matthew Perry, I do not want you to go over to Japan and bully them. I do not want you to go over to Japan and intimidate them. I do not want you to go over to Japan and threaten them. I want you to go over to Japan as a friendly overture of trade to see if we can work something out as a way to open negotiations for friendship, then ambassadors, and then trade. That's what Fillmore sent Matthew Perry to do. Spoiler alert, Matthew Perry did very little of that. Here is the Commodore Matthew Perry. I do not want green eggs and ham. I do not want them, Sam I am. I do not want them with a fox. I do not want them in a box. I do not want you to threaten Japan. I do not want you, Sam I am. Anyway, so this is Commodore Matthew Perry. And note, he's a Commodore. He is a United States naval officer. Hey, Martest, welcome. Good to see you. And he's going to show up with a Navy flotilla because that's what naval commanders do, right? He looks like a Dr. Seuss character. He kind of does. For those of you that are interested in a little side, this has nothing to do with the actual conversation. Mac in a lab coat, one of our mods here in the channel and one of my dearest friends, has this great idea for a movie where he gets the actor Matthew Perry to play Commodore Matthew Perry. So it's Matthew Perry in Matthew Perry. And we were talking just a few months ago about how, well, I guess it was actually probably last year is the last time this came up in conversation, but Mac was very excited that Matthew Perry in real life had hit the actual age that Matthew Perry would have been when Matthew Perry went to Japan. So Mac also wants to hire all Japanese cast members, especially voice actors from anime that he likes, and get them SAG cards by showing up in movies that they film. They need to film one scene in the United States to be SAG members. He's got this whole plan, and this is what's going to happen when he wins the lottery or becomes independently wealthy. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the actual stream. I just think it's great, and I'm totally behind this. I get to be historical. What's the word here? The guy that they talk to about historical accuracy on the movie set. So how could I forget that? That's a great idea. Anyway, Matthew Perry shows up. He has 4 warships with him. America by that time was using steamships that had big exploding shell, fire-based kind of howitzer cannons. And he's going to show up in Edo Harbor in 1853. And he is going to block off Edo Harbor from trade. And he's going to start sending overtures to Japan that basically says, all right, yo, I'm here to talk. You're going to talk with me, or I'm going to blow you up. And this initially doesn't really get a lot of response because Tokugawa Ieyasu was sick. He is the shogun. He was sick, and he was like that sick where you're in bed and you're probably not going to get out of bed. And Tokugawa Ieyasu was not particularly old, so this was sort of a very odd sickness, and it was just a very unfortunate period of time. And what's going to end up happening is the council of elders that were supposed to sort of help the shogun make decisions are going to have to take on a bit more of a prominent role here. And this is something that had never happened in the last 200 plus years. The shogun had always been there. The shogun had always made all the calls. The shogun had given token acknowledgement to the council of elders like, hey, I want to do this. What do you all think? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's great. He's like, that's what I thought. But with Ieyasu literally sick, potentially dying in bed, here's this American with super modern warships with giant cannons. And to begin with, Matthew Perry decides, okay, well, we're going to scare them. So he loads up some of the cannons with blank rounds. You know, they're not actually shooting projectiles. And he waits until the 4th of July and then shoots off a whole bunch of these cannons and says, oh, this was a 4th of July celebration. It wasn't meant for intimidation. But let's remember that the Japanese did not have cannons like this. This was something that they did not possess the knowledge of how to make. And here's the Americans shooting off these giant explosion things, not letting anybody into Edo Harbor. And this is freaking people out. And so then come the actual direct threats. I will level Edo. I will blow up this. I keep saying Edo and it's pronounced Edo. I'm sorry. I will blow up this whole city. I will shoot fire shells into your city and burn down the entire capital city. You are going to talk to me. And that doesn't meet a response because, again, Ieyasu is sick and the Council of Elders isn't really completely aware of what they needed to do in this situation. So then he actually does start shooting. He shoots several structures that are on the... Matthew Perry blows up some structures on the docks, on one of the side of the docks in Edo Harbor. And at this point, things are going to have to change because it's pretty clear that he's not going to go away. And the guy that is basically going to have to take over the position of negotiation for Japan is a guy named Abe Masahiro. Now, Abe Masahiro was... Oh, I got a picture of him. Let me show you his picture. Here we go. Abe Masahiro. He was the head of the Council of Elders. So he's like the chief elder. And he is going to say, all right, fine. Send your letter of introduction. We will talk. We will try to work out something between the two of us. So they open up some kind of a dialogue here. And basically what ends up happening is that Abe Masahiro says, look, we are not in a position to make a decision right now. We need to consult with our government. We need to send messages to all of our people. We need to call together. Basically, he's stalling here. He doesn't come out and say, look, our shogun is about half dead and we don't know what to do. What he says is, we need to think this over. I have been given the ability to talk to you, but not the ability necessarily to negotiate with you. So give us some time. We'll get our act together. Come back in a year. And Matthew Perry was headed over to China. And he's like, okay, fine. I'll come back in a year. So Matthew Perry leaves. Again, this is 1953. And no sooner had he left than Iyeyoshi dies. So now Iyeyoshi is gone, and the guy that takes over is his son, but his son is a kid, like a really young kid. And oh God, what do you do now? Because you know that the United States is coming back, and now you have this kid who's also kind of sick, by the way, had a sickly young life, had not really been very strong or particularly healthy as a child. I should tell you who this guy's name is, by the way. Wrong box. Nope, that's the guy who... He's also named his son Iyeyoshi. Sorry, his name is Iyasada. They're all EA, except for the last guy. So Tokugawa Iyasada takes over as a young kid. He's not really in charge. Abe Masahiro is still very much in the driver's seat right here. But this is a very odd situation because now people can't look to the shogun. You have a young shogun who's not really going to be in a position to rule. And when Matthew Perry shows up, he doesn't wait for a year. He shows up about 6 months later, and this time he has 8 warships. And he's like, all right, I am not leaving this time until I get an answer. And you will give me an answer, one way or the other. And I will start shooting again if you prefer, but I will have an answer. And Abe Masahiro doesn't really know what to do, just to be honest. Like, he doesn't necessarily have the authority to do anything, and he's going to do something really out of the ordinary. He's going to send word to the daimyo, all of the daimyo, and he's going to say, I want all of you... Okay, so Matthew Perry left Japan and sailed right over here to China, and on the way linked up with some additional U.S. naval vessels and then sailed right back over here to Japan. He didn't go all the way back across the Pacific. The end goal was always going to be China anyway. The Japan thing was just supposed to be a stopover to open conversation. The United States' real interest was trying to get land and get into the market of China. So Japan was not the ultimate goal here. So when he showed back up, it was earlier than expected, but also, I mean, he was right there. The situation in China also did not go very well for Matthew Perry. He did not meet any of his goals, so he was sort of under pressure to deliver something. Like, I've got to bring something back to the president or else, right? So this is why he decides, I am not leaving Japan empty-handed. You all are going to give me something. So Abe Masahiro sends word to all the daimyo, and he's basically going to take a poll, and he's going to say, what do you all think I should do? This is huge. This had never been done before. The shogun had never polled the daimyo for their opinion. This was a complete step outside of every norm that existed in the government structure, and it's going to be a giant red flag that the Bakufu is falling. They no longer have central authority. They don't have the ability to decisively act. Things are going bad for them. And from the messages that we have recorded in history, about a third of the daimyo say, do not talk to them at all. If they want to invade, let them come. We will kill them. Another third said, yes, we have to trade with them. It's the only way to keep us safe. And another third said, is this a trick? Are you going to kill us if we agree one way or the other? How about we stand with your decision? So you have about a third that are pro, a third that are anti, and then a third that are like, we defer to the wisdom of the shogun. You know, the whole like, I ain't touching that. Yeah, it's a mess. So what ends up happening? Well, Abe Masahiro doesn't really want to talk. He doesn't want to wrap the shogunate up into a decision with the United States that is going to come back and bite Japan in the hiney. But there are some people that are interested. And members of the imperial clan and individuals from the imperial court are going to be authorized by the emperor to go talk with Matthew Perry. And I just moved that, didn't I? And what's going to come out of that is something called the Treaty of Kanagawa. I'm probably going to have to... Yeah. Treaty of Kanagawa. And I was really excited. I actually found a... Oh, I didn't even show you. This, by the way, is Ieyasu, the current shogun. Now, this is from when he was older in life, clearly. He took over when, again, he was just a kid. I think he was maybe 12. Don't quote me on that, though. He was young when he took over. But here is the actual English translation or copy of the Treaty of Kanagawa. So here we see the President of the United States under his Matthew Perry, Special Ambassador. But let's look right down here where it says, Hayashi Daigaku no Kami. So the position Daigaku no Kami was an imperial position. This is effectively the guy inside of the imperial household that was in charge of education. So this was signed by an imperial power. Now, what did this thing do? Well, not really too much. It basically allowed certain ports inside of Japan to be opened for American ships to stop. Basically, if they needed to resupply, they could stop at certain ports. If they needed to buy coal, they could stop and buy coal. But this was not a trade agreement. This was not, we're going to bring goods and sell them, and you're going to send us goods and sell them, and we're going to have exchange. This was really just a first step towards opening relationships between the United States and Japan. But this was met by the Americans as a rave success. The government of the United States gave Matthew Perry $20,000. And let's remember that this was in 1854. $20,000 in 1854 was like ridiculously large amounts of money. So even this little step of getting the foot in the door with Japan was recognized as a momentous occasion, and it was not very long before other countries started kind of smelling blood in the water. Because if the Americans did it, now other people can do it too, right? If you're going to say we won't trade with anybody, that's one thing. But if you're going to say, well, we're not going to trade with anybody, but you can land your ships here, well, we want that too, right? Oh, the Treaty of Kanagawa. This, by the way, was seen as super bad by the emperor, even though they actually signed on to it. 20K back then was well over $500,000 today. Thanks, Mac. Yeah, like I said, it's a ton of money. And Matthew Perry then went on to write his memoirs and retire. Because, I mean, he was super honkin' rich at that point. So here's Abe Masahiro, who's now stuck with this decision that he didn't necessarily directly participate with. However, there's not really much you can do about it because you can't really say no to the United States now because you've already said yes. So what are you to do? Well, Abe Masahiro is going to have to try to run Japan. But he's not the shogun. Remember, he's just the guy that's the head of the Council of Elders. He's not the shogun. The shogun is still a little young kid that's kind of sick. So Abe Masahiro is going to try to do what he can. It's time to try to fix what we can and preserve what we can and tinker with what we can. And here's how we're going to do that. The Ansei reforms. These are a period. This is a period of time between 1854 and 1856, and the goal here is we're gonna change Do they exchange gold for the supplies, or what sort of currency? So at that point, most of the currency in the Western world was either gold or silver. It was still very much based on the gold or silver standard. So yes, if the Americans were to pull into a dock, they would be paying gold coins, which would have then been converted according to the value of gold inside of a Japanese marketplace. The Japanese imperial coins were not based necessarily on the value of gold or silver. They were somewhat based on the value of rice inside of the economy. They were a little bit more of a fiat currency than an actual hard currency. They did have inherent value, but the Japanese monetary system is really complex and convoluted, and it's a deeper scenario than just, yes, it's gold, or yes, it's rice-based. It's also sort of based on the availability of things. It's a fluctuating mess. And it had led to part of the economic wreck that had happened back during Ieyasu Tokugawa's reign. Part of that was because their monetary policy was garbage. The bale of rice stipend, yes, the koku, right. So there you go. It's a messy sort of economic system to run on. But it was what they had. So the Ansei reforms, what are we going to do? Well, first off, other countries are going to want to open ports. You open ports with the United States, why not open ports with us? So Japan is going to open ports to Russia, and Japan is going to open ports to the Netherlands. And the Netherlands deal is especially going to be interesting because the Netherlands has access to steam technology. And this is something that the Japanese did not have access to. But Abe Masahiro understood that when the Americans showed back up, if the Japanese had to fight them with the technology that they currently had, they were going to get wiped off the face of the earth. So Japan needed to try to do what it could to modernize, and if it could get its hands on one of these steamships, it could sort of reverse engineer the technology, and then Japan could begin to produce its own. That doesn't quite go as well as expected, but I do have a picture of this guy. This is the Karen Maru, as the first steam impeller-driven, screw-driven ship that the Japanese buy from the Dutch. It is a modern ship from Europe, and the Japanese immediately set onto it and began to try to figure out how to reverse engineer it. Now, I do want to note, this was early steam technology, so you go, why does it still have the sails here if it's a steamship? Well, this is to cut down on the amount of coal that you're having to drag around. If you can move under steam power, that's one thing, but if you can move under steam and wind power, that cuts down on the amount of steam power that you need, which further extends the range of your ship, which also saves you money on burning coal. So it's a combination. Yeah, it's an ancient hybrid. That's exactly what it is, David. It can run on many things. This is prior to the invention of the hydrogen fuel cell. Pardon me. So anyway, that ship's called the Karen Maru. Anyway, they're going to buy this from the Netherlands, and they're also going to help Japan, the Netherlands, they're also going to help Japan start fortifying their ports. And involved in this fortification process are going to be newer and much more advanced weapon systems, especially cannons. And these cannons are going to go around the rims of the ports. They're going to tell them how to start building fortifications that you can put these cannons in. And of course, the Netherlands are loving this because, well, the Japanese are effectively buying it from them. So in a way, the Japanese are trading with the Netherlands, but they're just trading money for basically security at this point. But here's the thing. There are a lot of people that do not like this. There were a lot of people that did not like participating with the Europeans at all, did not like trading with the Americans at all. And there are a big series of earthquakes. These are referred to as the Ansei earthquakes. And these are in about 1840s. I think they were in not 40 in 50, 55. I think they're 55 or 56. There are like 120 of these earthquakes, so it's not like one event. There's a whole series of geological things. And the common people are going to say that these earthquakes are signs from the gods, that Japan is selling out its soul to these Westerners, that all of the stuff that they're doing is evil, that they need to back away from this stuff, that if they continue down this road, it's going to be a dark, slippery slope. You know how this all goes. And what's really interesting, if you look at a lot of the block prints that come out, so a lot of the propaganda that was being spread during this period of time was done in block print style, the ukiyo-e style. And one of the popular themes that starts showing up is this giant catfish, because there's a catfish spirit that's associated with earthquakes. And this goes back into Japanese mythology. And the idea was that the earthquakes were caused by this traditional Japanese god who was angry at how these leaders of Japan were ruining Japan. After these earthquakes, there are some further attempts by Abe Masahiro to try to get things working, but he is actually going to get forced out of his position. And one of the main, I guess, kind of functionary individuals that gets him kicked out you drew that catfish for your Usagi? Yes. So the thunder catfish, the earth shaker. The emperor at this time is a guy named Emperor Kome, who looks like this guy. Well, I mean, he is this guy. This is Emperor Kome. So Kome was becoming very vocal. He did not like the deal that was made. He took over being emperor in 1847. He really did not like the Matthew Perry deal, the Treaty of Kanagawa. He did not like that at all. He did not like the reforms, the Ansei reforms, did not care for those at all. And he had begun to very vocally and openly speak out that the shogunate was driving Japan off of a cliff. And because things were changing so rapidly and things were going so badly, there were a lot of people that really started to listen to Emperor Kome. And it should be noted that there had always been imperial supporting clans. There had always been clans that had fought for the side of the emperor, that were related to the imperial clan. A lot of the outsider daimyo, the bad guys to the Tokugawa, were the clans that had supported the emperor when Tokugawa had defeated all of them. So there had always been clans that were going to align themselves with the emperor. But what really starts happening is that a lot of the people, it doesn't really matter what clan you're in, but a lot of the people inside of Japan start thinking that the emperor is maybe the right way to go. Like maybe we don't need to follow the shoguns. Maybe the shoguns are too blinded by this idea of locking Japan in this cryogenic freezer. Maybe we need to change. Maybe we need to change a little bit, but change in our way and change in a traditional way that we could follow the emperor to do. There's this weird sort of double brain or double thought process of we need to change to keep up and preserve our way of life, but we don't necessarily need to change in the way that the West wants us to change. We need to send our people to the West. We need to send our scholars to France. We need to send our scholars to America, and they can learn how to do this stuff, and then they can bring it back to us, and then we can modernize ourselves. And that way we can negotiate with all of these other people from a position of strength instead of a position of weakness. And these are ideas that are starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger inside of the society at the time. And the imperial house is very aware of that. And Emperor Kome is very aware of that. And then the really bad stuff happens. If you didn't think it was bad, well, guess what? It's about to get real bad. It gets bad because of this guy. This guy's name is Townsend Harris. The earthquakes become sentient. Oh, dude. It's like an earthquake avatar. That would suck. Like, could you even imagine? Like, what would that even look like? Just a giant mudslide that has like eyeballs or something. So Townsend Harris, that's the guy that was just there. Townsend Harris is an American. No, they didn't hit. They didn't run out of toilet paper. They did not have any sort of issue with COVID. Kaiju-sized Earth Elemental, that would be pretty awesome, just to be honest. Anyway, so it's always Godzilla. Townsend Harris is going to come to Japan. Robber barons manipulate the tax code and always the wealthier. Yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of that going on. But Townsend Harris shows up, and he had been sent by the United States, this is in 1858, to open trade. Now, the Treaty of Kanagawa did not open trade, it just opened relationships. Harris is showing up to open trade. And when he shows up, he does not even play. He just starts in with the threats. And part of the reason that he is able to do this is because the previous shogun, Tokugawa Ieyasu, had died, and we have a new shogun, Tokugawa Iemochi. And he looks like this. So we have this new shogun. This is like the first year of his reign. The previous shogun had been very unpopular. The imperial house was no tamago. Yeah, no egg for you. The previous shogun had been bad. Emperor Komei is becoming very popular. And here comes this American who is showing up again with a fleet. And he says, I will destroy you if you do not directly sign this agreement for trade with me. And because, again, Tokugawa Iemochi was very new to the position, he basically gets blackmailed into signing a really, really horrible treaty called the Harris Treaty in 1858. I'll trade you my beat-up Richie Rich 201 for your Amazing Fantasy 15. Yeah. This is more like, I'll take your Amazing Fantasy 15 and you'll say thank you. Give me all of your original Manolas. I want your original cover to Hellboy #1. Give it to me now. So the Harris Treaty from 1858 is an abysmal treaty. It does many things that are all bad for Japan. Number one, the U.S. forces them open to trade. America can bring whatever it wants. Not only do the ships have a guaranteed permission to dock, the United States has most favored nation status, which means that effectively the United States was going to be able to dictate Japanese foreign relationships with other countries, because the Japanese had to sign the Harris Treaty or they were going to all die. And inside of the Harris Treaty, it said Japan can't make deals without the U.S. being involved. The United States got to set up autonomous zones within Japanese cities. So basically, there were parts of the port where the American embassy was, where they could do whatever they wanted to. And it wasn't just like the building of the embassy was United States territory. It's pretty much just like we get a zone to do whatever we want. America can export whatever it wants from Japan. It can bring out gold or silver from Japan in material wealth without paying taxes on it. They can immigrate to Japan as much as they want to. This is a completely one-sided, really, really bad treaty. Merca. It's Merca all over, Emmy. It's Merca all over. The Harris Treaty is horrible. And this being one of the first things that Tokugawa Iemochi does, it's going to shade and color the rest of his reign. Because you can't get out from under this. America had a signed treaty. They had a signed treaty from the legal head of the government, and they had the guns to back it up. Well, as soon as this happens and word gets out to the other countries, the British and the French and the people of the Netherlands and the Russians, as soon as they all figure out that America has now forced Japan into trade, well, guess what? Now they all want to trade. But here's the deal. If they want to trade in Japan now, they get to trade only at the whim of the United States, because Japan has given United States most favored nation status. And now to trade in Japan, you have to lobby the United States. And of course the US is going to take cuts from all of this stuff. So, the British want to trade in Japan. We need to have a summit where the British and their delegation are going to sit across the table from the Japanese and the United States, but the Japanese are effectively just sitting there because, whatever, and the Americans and the British are going to work out this deal where the British are probably not going to pull into Japanese docks. They're probably going to pull into American docks that are part of American autonomous zones and then trade with the Americans, who are then going to buy stuff from the Japanese at a discounted rate because they're the most favored nation. And the Americans are going to be making a lot of money off of the trade with the British, and the Japanese are really only going to get secondary benefits. I'm here. What did you miss? Please tell me in extreme detail. Kyle, I would love to tell you in extreme detail what you missed. Here's the beautiful part of it. When the stream ends, you'll get to listen to these lovingly soothing dulcet tones cover all of this in as much detail as you want by watching the VOD. This means anime for everyone, right? Everybody wants the Hello Kitty. It's the power of the Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty is universal. Everybody knows Hello Kitty, and everybody wants to trade Hello Kitty. If you did not have Hello Kitty, wouldn't you want Hello Kitty? Come on. So much for the ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Techman, again, American imperialism is all about treating people not like we want to be treated. Is this the root of the Macross Robotech rights issues? So there is a lot of stuff in anime, including in Macross, where the Japanese people put their own history into anime. There's a lot of Japanese political thought and social thought that gets wrapped up into anime, including historical stuff like this. When you say Hello Kitty is universal, do you mean like a universal monster? No. But I do think if they ever remade Ghostbusters, instead of having the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man try to destroy the world at the end of the movie, it should be Hello Kitty. I really do think that would be something that everybody could get on board with. It's like, don't think about anything, and then you think of Hello Kitty, and then Zool is like, your future is Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, Hello Kitty, the Blob. Yeah, absolutely. It's in the dark universe that Universal was trying to make. That didn't go anywhere. That Mummy movie they made was so across the board. Like, that was just, it was bad. It was just bad. Like, make one movie and then, licensing nightmare, pretty much. So, all of these other countries, the English, the French, the Russians, the Dutch, they all start getting to trade in Japan, but it's because they make deals with America. Hello Kitty Vampire Hunter. If something has a commercial potential, it will become universal. Absolutely. Hello Kitty is a twin, by the way. I did not know that, Vern. Ghostbusters 3 is coming up. Never count it out. We can all hope, isn't it? Also, hey, Vern. Welcome. Good to see you. And hey, Emmy. I didn't say hey to you earlier. Sorry. So, what's going to happen? Well, Emperor Komei hates all of this junk. He doesn't like the Harris Treaty. He was completely against the shogun signing it, but he doesn't really have an unlimited amount of power to stop the shogun from signing it. And Komei is going to begin openly talking about how badly the shogun is running things. He's going to start openly talking about how poorly the country is being governed, how bad the decisions that are being made are, just really giving him the 1-2. And during this period of time, there's going to be, if I can't type and talk at the same time, sorry. Make Japan great again. Kinda. During this period of time, there is going to be a slogan that starts going around. And it's a whole phrase, but it gets shortened down to Sono Joy. That was... I don't know if we can draw a direct parallel between that. Komei was trying to start a populist movement, but there are some similarities, but I don't know if I can necessarily overlap that 100%. The sentiment is the same. We need to stand for ourselves. Globalization bad. Anybody that's not our supposed identity of race is bad. Outsiders bad. All that bad. Yeah, that sentiment is very much there. So Komei is going to start talking about this idea, and the phrase is reverence to the emperor, expulsion of the barbarian. But this gets shortened down into Japanese to Sonojoi, which is reverence to the emperor. We need to revere the emperor. Listen to what the emperor says. Expel the barbarians. And this catches on. And Vern hits us with the Unicode. So, Komei... these are our two operating figures at the moment. Tokugawa Iemochi and Emperor Komei. Komei is going to do something a bit unprecedented in Japanese at the time, or in Japanese government at the time. He is going to issue an edict. Now, according to the rules of the Bakufu, the emperor could not issue edicts. The emperor had no power to do anything legal. The emperor could basically perform functionary duties, show up at the ceremonies and sit in the fancy chair and be honored, but had no real governmental power. But the emperor had popular power. So in 1861, Emperor Komei is going to start this Sonojoi, and he's going to start pushing this idea of expelling the barbarian. We've got to expel the barbarians. And when this catches on, 1863, he's going to pass the edict to expel the barbarians. And very basically, it says, kick everybody that's not Japanese out of Japan. And this resonates with a lot of the people. Let me show you one of the propaganda posters. So this is a woodblock print, a ukiyo-e. And here we have a Japanese sumo wrestler who is expelling the barbarian. And in the background, the Japanese people are rejoicing. So, get out of here, barbarian. I shall expel thee with my natural power. I hope I don't get in trouble for showing samurai nipples. Don't look at the nipples. Avert your eyes from the nipples. Don't look at the nipples. The sumo wrestler's like, come at me, bro. Come at me, bro. This is their version of Superman punching Hitler. It was Captain America that punched Hitler. Also, hey, APM, welcome, my friend. I think it's that time. We've got all of the all of the cool friends are in the house tonight, so we got to do all the shout outs. Shout out at David Peterson. David Peterson, author, illustrator of Mouse Guard. Gotta go check that dude out. He's a great streamer. I'm going to try to do these. Superman would have punched Hitler into the sun. Yeah. Go check out Cave Geek. Did I say? Yeah, David Peterson's a cool guy. Cave Geek art. Really cool guy. Does awesome artwork. You should go check it out. Color by Emmy. Also great artist here on Twitch. You should go check out Color by Emmy. 8 p.m. Is an art streamer, but so much more. An entertainer at heart. One of the most animated individuals I've ever seen on Twitch, and I say that with love and respect. I do not have the emotional stamina that he does, and I envy the intensity. Who else is here? Have I missed anybody? I don't think that I have. Oh, yep, I have. I have. Go check out the Visual Nomad, oil painter extraordinaire, friend of the show, good chat. I love Visual Nomad does usually abstract art with the great colors. And I know that's like a very like, she's got cool colors. That's like, it's kind of a lame thing to say, but like I for real mean it. The visual intensity that's going on here it's almost a synesthesia thing, even if you don't have synesthesia. So go check out all these cool people and hang out in everybody's world, because we should all be friends, right? Who is this David Peterson? You have a BFA in animation. You want to see the science behind that, like what was actually left of Hitler if he actually got hit with enough kinetic energy to fly from the Earth to the sun. Nezumi Yojimbo. What about rat people? You do makeup tutorials. Yes. So in a completely random aside, I was trying to find a link to a particular video on David's... David Peterson here in the chat has a YouTube channel for his art and to kind of the companion of all of his stuff. And I went to YouTube and found out that there is actually there's a David Peterson spelled exactly the same way that does makeup tutorials. And I was like, David, this is not you. Anyway, yeah, no worries. Everybody, we have so many great friends here that are talented individuals that have so much to add to the world. I'm not a visual artist by any stretch of the means. I still draw disproportionate stick figures, but I have so much love for especially the art side of Twitch. It makes me warm in the heart. So thank you all for hanging out. I really do appreciate everybody stopping by. It really is... It is honorable to have so many people that are willing to spend some time goofing off and chatting about history here. So, Komei puts out this thing, like, all right, got to kick out all the barbarians. And this is where we get to The Emperor Strikes Back, which is not necessarily a song title, which I normally do, but it's a Star Wars thing, and goodness knows, if I'm going to be able to make a Star Wars pun, you know I'm going to go there. It's okay. It's okay. Stick figures are okay. XKCD... Yeah, I know. I'm not nearly as clever as the people that write XKCD, though. And I said disproportionate stick figures. Their stick figures are proportionate. So, Komei puts out the order to expel the barbarians. And the Shogun goes, okay. I mean, what do you... Nobody follow that. He's the emperor. He can't tell you what to do. But here's the thing. A lot of people are like, yeah, kick them out. Do it. And a lot of people start kicking out the barbarians. And this is going to start again down here in the south and or west of Japan, in this region right down here. which is sort of this zone right in here, which is the Chosu domain. Again, the Chosu domain was one of the hotbeds of anti-Tokugawa sentiment. The clan that ran them, the Mori clan, was super anti-Tokugawa, one of the biggest Tozama lords that was out there. And the Chosu were also some of the people that had been studying Western technology a little bit. So they actually had some furnaces down there and could make some cannons. And they're like, oh, hey man, the emperor said kick out the barbarians. Let's blow them up. And so there are a couple of instances which are pretty sketchy when it comes to international legality. The Chosu domain starts kicking out the barbarians, and they're going to push out a lot of people from the docks. They're going to end up killing a British civilian, and this gets Japan into giant hot water. The government of England gets all in a tizzy. They demand that the shogun pay this huge ransom, or not a ransom, I guess it would be a reparation for the death of this individual, and the shogun ends up paying it. Initially, the British go, you Chosu domain people are going to pay this, and they're like, well, I can't do what they did. They didn't actually give them the middle finger because the Japanese people don't have a middle finger thing at that point. But they basically said, we're not paying you jack, go away, England. And so England took it to the shogun, was like, well, then you're going to pay this, and you're going to pay for this guy's life and family and yada, yada, yada. And the shogun's like, all right, here's the money. And that turns into a whole thing, because that just emboldens the Chosu, and they say, look how weak the shogun is. They're paying indemnities. No, they had 5 fingers, but I'm saying that they don't have a cultural, visual, symbolic equivalent to the middle finger. I thought you were about to tell me Japanese people didn't have middle fingers. Almost shook. No. They all have 5 fingers. They just don't give the middle finger because that's a very American / Westernized thing. You came back in time for middle fingers. Absolutely. So there is going to be a big hubbub that breaks out, and it's going to be called the Shimonoseki campaign. So here's what happens. Some United States merchant ships decide that they're going to try to pull into a port in this western part of Japan. And the Japanese are going to decide, we're following the emperor, and they start shooting at these ships. Now, it's kind of unfortunate, but needs to be noticed. The Japanese were very new to a lot of these weapons, and they shot a lot of times at these American ships, and they really only hit them a couple of times, but it was enough to damage these ships, and the ships ran off looking for American support. And this is going to be, this by the way is in 1863 to 1864. This turns into a whole thing, because America shows up and they're like, why'd you shoot at us? And the Japanese are like, we hate you and we want you to go away and we want you to never come back. And the Americans are like, well, your government signed this document. And the people in the west of Honshu are like, our government is the emperor and he says, forget you. And have you seen this cool poster of this sumo guy chucking one of you around? Because we'd like to throw you out. And so the the United States is going to happen to be in the sort of the same floating circle as some French warships. And the United States warships and some French warships are basically going to sail into this region called Shimonoseki and level it. They're just going to blow the junk out of it and just wipe out docks and buildings inside of these port cities, and just like kind of bring the wrath of the capitalism down upon the heads of these people down in the West. And this is a pretty big moment here. Because then this actually starts getting some of the pro-Western daimyo going, ooh, like, we didn't think they were going to just show up and start shooting. We thought they were going to just make the Tokugawa pay more money. Like, this whole, they get to unilaterally decide to blow people up in Japan. That ain't right. And so they go to the shogun and they're like, all right, Iemochi, what's your answer? And his answer was, we started it? I guess you don't need this now, do you? Destroy stuff in petty. Right. He was like... The official shogunate response is... What do you want us to do? Shoot back? And the Japanese are like, something? Can you do something? Can you at least go on Twitter at 4 o'clock in the morning and say something mean about their head of state? Like, can you do something? And Iemochi's like, I don't like those people down there in Chosu anyway. Like, I'm kind of happy that they got blown up because they're poopy pants and I don't like them in the first place. And at this point, the daimyo are like, no. You're playing partisan politics and you need to stand up for Japan. Shimonoseki campaign doesn't do great things for Tokugawa Iemochi. And something real big is about to happen. Because after the official Japanese response to Japanese citizens getting blown up by the United States and France is, Kome sees an opening. Kome is going to send a summons to Iemochi and say, you and I need to sit down and talk. And you need to come to Kyoto and talk about it. Now, we haven't talked about Kyoto. But Kyoto was the center of Japanese government because that's where the emperor lived. Now, for the entire Edo period, Kyoto had effectively been a prison. It was a glorious, wonderfully white-walled prison, but the emperor really couldn't leave. But the shoguns did not go to Kyoto. The head of the government was in Edo, where the shogun was. And if you wanted to do government business, you went to Edo. But Kome goes, get your butt to Kyoto. We need to have a sit-down. We're going to have a come to Izanami meeting. Izanami is one of the Shinto deities. This is huge. Because Iemochi goes. It's not just that Kome was in a position to demand the presence of the shogun. It was a mark of the weakness of Iemochi that he realized that he had to go. And this is huge. Because if I summon you and you show up, who's the power holder in this relationship? I mean, just be honest. Who has the real power here? It's Kome. And this is going to be the end of the Tokugawa, just the beginning of the end. When this happens, he has the power. That's in Eternia, and we're not talking about the history of Eternia here. And He-Man didn't actually have the power. The power was given to him, and we all know that it could have been taken away from him. He was the holder of the power, not the bestower of the power. Next viewer request, History of Eternia. I don't know if there's enough information out there to do that. That would be an interesting, maybe, community goal. But anyway, so here's the deal. When this happens, the Chosu domain is like, okay, it's time. Like, it is go time. The shogun has tipped his hand. The emperor's in charge. Let's go for it. So the Chosu are going to send troops up to Kyoto with the idea that they are going to literally liberate the emperor. They're basically going to, like, break the Tokugawa hold over Kyoto and effectively allow the emperor to run things without Tokugawa oversight. Now, Iemochi sees what's happening and is like, oh, heck no. So he sends troops down, and there's actually a big, tense standoff between the Chosu domain and the Tokugawa soldiers. And into this steps a third party, the leader of the Satsuma domain. The Satsuma domain was another one of these Western / not really pro Tokugawa domains. And they're like, look. We don't need to fight. We just need to back down. We need to take a breath. And what really is happening here is that the Satsuma did not want the Chosu to be the ones that liberated the emperor. They wanted to be the ones that liberated the emperor. So they stopped the Chosu from doing it by brokering a deal with the Tokugawa. Everybody took a big breath, and there wasn't any fighting in 1865. So the Chosu go back home, and the Satsuma lords immediately start talking with the Chosu behind their back. Now, here's the deal. The Satsuma and the Chosu clan leaders have never really been big friends, but they hate the Tokugawa more than they necessarily hate each other, so they sort of make a devil's bargain here. And when they realize that they have now 2 big domains, things are changing. But stuff is changing faster. And the problems inside... Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right, that's exactly what we're after. The problem here is that things are really, really changing fast. And what is changing is that Komei is going to fall very ill. Komei was young. He was in his 30s at this point. When Komei falls ill, a lot of people think that he was actually being poisoned. Like the Tokugawa were trying to poison him. So there was this big uproar, and he wasn't being poisoned. He just got sick. But what's really crazy is that before Komei dies, Iemochi dies. And Iemochi is also young. And we get both a new emperor and a new shogun. I'm going to have to just put his name here. So our new shogun is Tokugawa Yoshinobu, and I have photos of these people. Keep clicking on the break screen. Sorry. This is Tokugawa Yoshinobu. He was... It wasn't a conspiracy. Well, the conspiracy was between the Satsuma clan and the Chosu clan. But it wasn't necessarily a plan to kill either of them. Neither of them died from suspicious circumstances. We pretty much know what happened to both of them. So... he was not excited on that picture day, was he? No, he wasn't. This is the new emperor. This is a picture from when he was much older. I don't actually have a photo of him when he was younger. But the new emperor is a guy named Meiji. Hence, Meiji Restoration. So we already know where this is going. So with these new changes come lots of turmoil. This happens... Iemochi dies in 1866, and then Emperor Komei dies in 1867. So now we have a new shogun who is young but vibrant, and we have a very, very young emperor. At this time, Meiji was 14. So the new shogun is 36, and he is all about consolidating power, westernizing with a new military, and Yoshinobu Tokugawa is going to recognize that this is the moment. It's now or never, and Tokugawa Yoshinobu starts buying warships, he starts buying cannons, he starts trying to revolutionize the military, he starts bringing in French military captains to train the troops, and he is going to he's going to be the one that leads Japan forward. And when Yoshinobu starts making all of these moves, Emperor Meiji he's 14. He's not necessarily in the driver's seat. So we end up with the southern domains. The Chosu, The Satsuma and another group. Is that going to show up if I type that there? Yeah. Okay. The Chosu, the Satsuma, and the Tosa. Again, 3 of these southern daimyo. They're going to go. They go, it's time to go. And they're going to make a move to try to liberate the emperor. Yoshinobu is going to bring the army down. This is what's called the second Chosu expedition, where he's going to go down a second time to try to beat these guys. But here's the deal. If you'll remember me saying, the Chosu had been studying Western technology and had some Western cannons. And the Chosu are actually going to defeat Tokugawa Yoshinobu's forces. And this is in 1867. And this is huge. Absolutely huge. Because now the shogun has lost. And it has proven that he's not invincible. And things go crazy. This is canonical. I mean, this is history. I don't know if what you mean is canonical or not. So we end up with something called the Boshin War. And it's the Chosu, the Satsuma, and the Tosa, and several other imperial allied daimyos that are going to openly... Oh, with cannons. Haha. Oh, I see the double N now. I apologize. Yes, it is canonical. There we go. They're going to make it clear that they are out for blood. They want to kill Tokugawa Yoshinobu. And he's smart enough to go, okay, whoa. Let's just talk, right? And Yoshinobu thinks he's a long-term planner. He basically says, look, why don't we, instead of killing me, why don't we set up a sort of advisory panel of daimyo, and then we can elect kind of a prime daimyo, a primyo, if you will. And what he's really thinking is, if we allow these southern people a little bit, their alliance will fall apart because they'll turn on each other. Remember that the Chosu and the Satsuma are not necessarily natural allies. So he abdicates from the position of shogun, and he suggests that this panel of daimyo be formed. And what he's really hoping is that he can get back into power. And it doesn't go his way, because as soon as he abdicates, the Chosu, Satsuma, Tosa alliance break open Kyoto. And Meiji has a kind of an official coming out of power, and they say that the emperor is restored to all of his positions. And then because the Chosu and Satsuma and Tosa alliance is holding Kyoto and is helping the emperor, they then get the emperor, again, Emperor Meiji, he's 15 at this point, to eliminate the position of shogun. So he passes a decree that says the position of shogun no longer exists. And they say, this guy, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, still has a lot of support. You should get rid of him too. And Meiji had enough sense of mind to go, we probably shouldn't kill him. So they pass a decree that basically strips Yoshinobu of all of his possessions and all of his power. And at that point, they're like, well, dude, fine. If you're going to play like this, let's fight it out. And this is the Boshin War from 1868 to 1869. There are some pretty big armies here, armies in the numbers of the 30,000 plus on both sides. There are a lot of maneuvers, a lot of strategic positioning. There's not a lot of really big, bloody super war kind of stuff going on. There are lots of casualties. There's like 8,000 or 9,000 people that die in this period of time. So it's not, it wasn't just all moving pieces around on a chessboard. People did die in this. But eventually the Chosu alliance is going to take Edo. And at that point, Yoshinobu gets imprisoned and then is forced to retire. the northern part of Japan, especially these regions really far up here and the island of Hokkaido, continue to fight on into 1869. But by around the middle part of 1869, the Bushin War is over, and the Meiji restoration has been completed. The emperor has taken back over. Now, that's a little bit of a hollow victory because, again, he's 15. He's not necessarily directly running the country, but he will. Emperor Meiji goes on to be a very powerful figure. Early in his life, he is dominated by a lot of these regent, other powers from other families that are helping him. And we all know how this goes when you're a young ruler. You get pushed around a lot until you can stand up for yourself. But by 1869, there is no more Tokugawa Bakufu, and the emperor has been restored. And that brings me to the end of my portion of the discussion tonight. However, if anybody has any questions about any of that, as always, I would be happy to answer them. If anybody has any sort of channel point redemption that they want to do, now would be a great time to do so. Otherwise, I am going to work myself around towards setting up something else. Anybody have any questions? Anybody have... Which side did Tom Cruise fight for? So, Tom Cruise was not there, but the movie The Last Samurai is set a little bit later when the emperor is a little bit older, but the idea was that one of the things that the emperor did to firmly and fully get rid of the concept of Bakufu was that he started to ban outward symbols of the Bakufu. Like, he basically made samurai illegal. The origins of the government run by a shogun, which was a military leader, was the samurai knight. And to get rid of the samurai, which was the last sort of cultural remnant of the Tokugawa, there were bans against top knots. There were bans against wearing the daisho, which is the two swords. So if Tom Cruise had showed up in his F-15, he would have totally run out of... he would have rolled until he ran out of gas. Yeah, pretty much. He felt the need for speed. All right. Okay, so because it is viewer request night, I first will ask, is there anybody that has enough points to request a viewer request stream and an idea of what they want to request the viewer request stream? History of Tom Cruise? No, we're not going to do the history of Tom Cruise. That tea has some grounds in it. History of Scientology? Do you have the points to request that, and are you requesting that? Because if nobody has the points that they want to redeem, we can add stuff to a poll and just have a poll. Yeah, it's not on there yet. So if you have never requested a stream, your first stream request is 10,000 points. If you have requested a stream prior, it is 20,000 points. And if you want to, I can add those. I did not read the tea leaves. I just sort of choked on them. I don't know why this tea is so full of grounds. I don't leave them on because I don't like having a whole giant stack of viewer requests. I like to try to keep, especially if people are going to pay for them with points, I like to keep them fairly close chronologically speaking. I don't want to have 19 viewer requests stacked up and then somebody spend 10,000 points and then have to wait 6 months to hear their request. But I can turn them on if you have them. All right, not seeing anybody. Sometimes you summon the puppy. Well, the puppy is actually under the table right here. If someone wants to summon her, we'll get her up on stream. Otherwise, we can just move on to having an actual poll.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Is that not why you are here? Tayo Inoue, welcome. Welcome, my friends. Let me give you a shout out. Tayo Inoue, what were you working on in chat tonight? Or on Twitch tonight? What do you do? Greetings, first of all. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Shane. I am a history teacher at a college here where I live in Mississippi. Bum ba dum ba dum bum ba dum bum. Thank you so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. You're doing a math stream. Oh, that's awesome. You would okay. So. Chips and churros, two of my favorite things. Welcome. Tayo Inoue, you would be so excited. Bum ba dum bum ba dum bum bum. Nilon, thank you so much for that follow, and also welcome to the adventure. Hey, it's Motivic. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, welcome. You suggested that these boys raid this way, but you're almost done. Hey, that's fine. We are still we are not done. We are just in the end phase, if you will. So my name is Shane. I teach college history on stream here. We talk about history, but we do it in a way that is easily accessible. It's not boring. It's full of pop cultural references. We just got through talking about what would happen if Top Gun pilot Maverick, aka Tom Cruise, showed up in the Meiji Restoration, aka the setting of The Last Samurai, and what would happen if you had an F-15. The Imperial forces would have been decimated. That's just what would have been happening. So stuff like that, but we also get to the actual history stuff. We have a really laid-back atmosphere. We talk about all sorts of stuff. Thank you so much for that raid. Tayo, if you have links, social media links, I gave you the shout out. If you have emotes that you can throw in the chat, people can click on those and get to your channel. Yeah. So how did the math thing go? Math questions and answers, all levels of math. Okay, so here's the thing. There are actually people in my chat that ask all the time, are there people that do math on stream? And this is awesome because now I can tell people where to go. And this is a great... Yes, Kelly, you were asking just last stream, where can we go to watch math? Tayo Inoue does math on Twitch, and now you know. And now you have your math connection. This is fortuitous and amazing. So tonight we're talking about the Meiji Restoration, which is a period of Japan where the Tokugawa Bakufu, which had ruled since the early 1600s, fell mostly to a mix of internal and external forces. And then we end up with a resurgent emperor under the rule of Emperor Meiji, who was a kid at the time, but still not a Tokugawa. So there we go. Shane tells people where to go. All right. So we have had a summoning of the adventure hat. This is the adventure hat. I frequently travel. Well, prior to COVID, I frequently traveled, I should say. And if you have the adventure points, you can summon the adventure hat. This is the adventure hat. I bring it with me when I travel because I am super pasty, and a lot of places that I go for archaeological stuff and history stuff have the sun about 2 inches away from your face. Bum, ba-dum. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Sanbu, welcome to the adventure, and thanks for that follow. This is Providence. Yes, that is in Rhode Island. So the request is my first adventure, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. Does that mean the first time that I ever left the country doing archaeology stuff, or does that mean the first travel trip that I remember, or the first time I ever went to somewhere that was historical? Techman, give me a little bit more, a little bit more magic there. So if you summon the adventure hat, I put on the adventure hat, and then I tell you a story of something that I've done or something that I've seen that's kind of cool. And it's usually a neat little anecdote. There you go, Kelly. So give me a little bit more guidance there, Techman. There are a lot of first adventures. The adventure hat, the first adventure hat to get into history academically. Okay, so the first adventure hat was not actually this adventure hat. The first adventure hat was a baseball cap, which I do still have. I'm wondering if I should go get it. Give me just a second. I'll put up the break screen and I'll go get the original adventure hat. VAR-INF, thank you so much for that follow. VAR-INF, I'm not sure. So this is the original adventure hat, and it was originally blue. Now it's not blue. Now it's like all faded out. Your first adventure that inspired you to pursue history in academics. Yes, this was originally blue. You can kind of see it on the bill there. I'll go ahead and wear this one. So this is the old school OG adventure hat. So the first thing that I did that made me want to get into history. So when I was a junior in high school, so that would have made me about 17. When I was 17, I took a trip with my classmates to Washington, D.C. It was the first time I went to Washington, D.C. And when I got there, we were doing all of the tourist things. We went to the White House. We went to the Congress or the Capitol building. We went to the Smithsonian. We went to Mount Vernon and the monuments. And what I figured out while I was there was that even at 17, I was a giant history nerd. I was a huge history nerd. That I was asking questions to our tour guide that our tour guide did not know the answers to. So I actually got in trouble. One of the teachers that was with us as a chaperone thought I was trying to be a jerk about it and sort of yanked me over to the side after about the third time that I had done that and just chewed me out. Like, why are you doing this to this person? You're embarrassing them at their job. And I'm like, I just want to know. Right? I want to know, like, what did they base this building on? Was this the original design? Did the architect look at some other thing to get the ideas for this? What's the significance of this number of steps or this number of columns? This was stuff that was already like fascinating me. And I realized that if I ever brought a group of students to Washington, D.C., I would know that. Like, I would know ahead of time. Like, I would be able to answer all of those questions. Like, even the weird ones that somebody came out of nowhere, I would want to know the answer to all of those questions. And that made me realize that I liked history in a way that it's just not normal in society. And I think that sort of subconsciously was one of the first times I was ever on a trip to a historical location that had a significant enough impact that I went back. Like, when we got back from Washington, D.C., I spent probably a month. This is prior the internet being widely available, by the way. I spent about a month looking up answers to a lot of these questions in books in the library. I had to go to the public library to look some of this stuff up. So that had an impact on me, that I really enjoyed knowing all of these little pieces and little ins and outs of things. And I think that had a pretty big impact on me deciding that history was definitely the way to go. And I will note that when I became a high school teacher, I did take my students to Washington, D.C., and I did know the answers to all the questions. And I tried my best to convince the principal that they should just let me be the tour guide, but they didn't do that, and the tour guide was a nice enough individual, but did not know what to do. It's a weird thing to have that drive inside of you. It won't let you ignore it, and you just need to know the answers. Yeah, I know. And Figment, I think you're the same sort of in that same boat, because there's something about being curious. And I was actually talking with our mods, KP and Mac, earlier today about how I really think that the difference between Mac, I don't know what that means. O/// to you too, my friend. What I was saying is that I think that one of the things that is hard to measure with standardized tests, or maybe even impossible to measure with a standardized test, is curiosity. And I think that curiosity is what separates some people from other people. That idea that they want to know why, and they want to know the hows and the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs of things. And I think that's something is in your keyboard, alas. Did Mac pass out on his keyboard? No, he just got a brand new keyboard, and it's a mechanical keyboard, so he shouldn't have any problems with it. He's got really cool Japanese watercolor style wave caps on his keyboard. It's pretty neat stuff. Anyway, we're all giant nerds here. Red jar of jam. Are you not entertained?
Is this not why you were here?
Is that not why you were here? Red jar of jam. Welcome, my friend. Everybody should go check out Red Jar of Jam, who is a great artist, has a really fun stream, really nice people to chat with. I don't mind hanging around. We're hanging out with friends. We are having a good time. That's really what Twitch is about, isn't it? Red, how was the stream? Daisho, welcome. Good to see you. Hope everybody's having a great night. No muscles. Me either. But thanks for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. You were writing the other day, and you're supposed to finish a chapter, and you spent 3 hours going down a rabbit hole trying to find out the correct title for words in the Sheila Monastery and government workers. Am I using those terms in the book? No, but you needed to know. I completely understand. My friend, Kilted Preacher, one of the mods here on the chat, and I can't remember if he came up with it and then I found out that it was true, or he found out with it from one of his... Anyway, there's this theory that we have sort of maybe co-cogitated that the mark of a scholar is the willingness to read an entire book for a footnote. Like, I will read this whole book so that this one sentence can have a footnote that explains this idea. That takes a level of dedication that is not common in a lot of people. And I'm not trying to say that this is a bad thing or a good thing. It can also be a very negative thing because you don't know when to stop and you don't know when to let go and you can't turn it off. And then it becomes a little bit of a nagging demon in the back of your head. So this is not being better or worse or anything. This is just the way that people are. Stream went fantastic. Red, if you have Instagram links or Twitter stuff that you want to share, please do feel free to share all of that stuff. Everybody should be going to follow all these great people that have brought so many friends in to hang out with us tonight. I really, really do appreciate that. You need to patent that saying. I see, and I don't know who would. I guess we could share a patent with it, but put that on a T-shirt. Hey, Sci-Fi Dallas, welcome, welcome. All our friends are coming over. Oh, I didn't shout out Martest earlier. Everybody go follow Martest, who does art streams. And is a cool dude. And is just a nice guy. Like, on a... You could say, oh, like, that's a nice guy. But, like, really mean it. Like, just, there's goodness there. Mayor Berzini, welcome. Good to see you. Guess what? You went to Manassas Battlefield on Monday? Oh, nice. Was it illuminating? Did you take good pictures? Manassas, by the way, one of the first big battles of the United States Civil War. There's actually Second Manassas, which is later on. But First Manassas, also called Bull Run. There's a weird naming nomenclature thing here. Martest, the more you deny it, the more that it's true. You jest because you deflect. You walked the trail for the first battle. Awesome. I've never been to Manassas before. But there's this weird thing where the different sides of the United States Civil War tended to name their battles differently. So the difference is that you either end up naming the battle after a river or a body of water that it's nearby, or the city. And it's weird. You never knew about the nomenclature, but the ranger explained it. There we go. There we go. See, this is why I like history. Like, I could go to the battlefield and do the thing. I am envious of your travel. I have not been able to travel very much this summer. She also said it got named Manassas because in the 40s, when it was becoming a park, a Confederate group of ancestors donated a ton of money. Yes, that is true. Also, why they have a super statue of Stonewall Jackson. Or geographical feature. Yes, so the North tended to name battles after cities, and the South tended to name battles after rivers or geographic features. You want to travel so badly? Yeah, me too. All right, so anybody want to redeem any more channel point stuff? If you look below you, you can hit the bloop little thing by the adventure hat, and you can see various things. South after city. Yeah, I said that backwards. My bad. I'm very flustered with all of the excitement in the chat. Hey, Tuna, welcome. On an Instagram, you've got the pictures of the tombless tombs, and jealous. Figment, share your Instagram and let everybody go follow you. You might do Yorktown tomorrow. Oh, that's a good one. Yorktown from a different work, by the way. I do not have pictures to show that fast. I have thousands and thousands of pictures. It would take me honking forever to try to dig those up. Yes, we're talking Manassas / Bull Run, right? Favorite tomb styles. Pictures would be cool if possible. Favorite tomb styles. That one's tough. Top 3 in order. I'm going to narrow that one down myself to tombs that I have been to, like tomb types that I have been to. I like the cut directly out of the bedrock style tombs. Those are neat. Cut directly out of the bedrock things like you would see at Petra, if you're familiar. Also, for those of you that are interested, you can go hang out on our Discord. I shared an article earlier today about the city of Pera, which is a city in Turkey. Used to be one of the big cities in a kingdom called Komagene. And there's this nice little write-up about the necropolis of Pera. And I got really excited about it, so I shared it in the Discord there in History in the News. But the tombs where they just find a big hill that's made out of rock and they just go right into it, sort of like a hobbit would. Those are pretty neat. The tombless style is got to be up there too. The idea that I'm going to create a hill for this person and do all this fun construction stuff, that's really neat. And then I guess the mausoleum, the good old-fashioned Greek-style mausoleum where you just have a ton of money and build yourself this giant honking, hero-type worship thing for yourself, like temples. The coolest ones that I've been to, though, I'm going to put Tumuli at the top, then cut straight out of the rock things like at Petra, then mausoleums as third. And I have pictures of all of those, but that would take me digging through, again, thousands and thousands of pictures to try to find cool things. You've also started a second account, What a Figment _history. You're going to start posting lots of details. Nice! Cool. Sounds good. Nothing says I love you like making a nation build a monument to you. Indeed. Opportunity to make a fun drive to hire someone to do your adventure photo management. I do my own adventure photo management. I don't have a problem doing that. It's hard for me to go find them immediately because even if I go to if I go to the folder that has the pictures for Pera, I might be digging through 300 or 400 to find the good ones because I take pictures of everything. I did a whole viewer request stream where I just showed pictures of places that I've been to. So that's one thing that we've done in the past. Not I love you, I love me. Nothing says I love me like making a nation building a mountain to bury yourself in. That's true. That's true, Tuna. I should do an adventure map of places that I have been. Oh, yeah, I could do that. I could probably just put a collection of pins. Yeah, Figment, you can actually absolutely post pictures in the Discord. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Like the French catacombs, very, very spooky. Yeah. Like the French ones where they just decided we're going to build this whole thing out of bones. Well, there's actually a place for photos. I think it's photos and videos, but you can put them wherever. I really don't care too much. I'm not super picky about the Discord. But yeah, I could build a little map of all the places that I've been. It would take a little while to do, but there'd be lots of pins like right around here, and like right around here, and then right here, right here. Anyway, okay, so one of the things that we need to do prior to officially signing off and or going to raid somebody else is that we need to pick the topic for the next viewer request stream. So we have viewer request streams where literally viewers pick whatever they want, and then we vote on it. And then we have the more, like on Thursday nights and a couple of nights, we'll have the actual Adventures in History show, which is chronologically organized. If you want to come back on Thursday night at 1900 Central Standard Time, we'll be talking about the fall of the Han Dynasty in China, which is pretty interesting stuff. One of my favorite periods of Chinese history. I like the fact that they're falling apart. The stuff that comes after it, the giant war that lasts forever, is actually more interesting than the falling apart. But okay, so here's what we do. We have a poll, and the poll for tonight that won was the Meiji Restoration, which is what we're talking about tonight. But the number 2 winner gets to basically be brought forward into the next poll. So the number 2 winner from the last poll was History of the Police. So what I need from you all, and I'll just take the first 3 that show up that I feel like I can actually accomplish that are seriously put. 3 ideas from you all about what to cover next. And it can be pretty much anything, just whatever you want. Doesn't have to be ancient, could be modern. Doesn't have to be a person, it can be a thing. Jack the Ripper, that's more like a true crime. The Manhattan Project, we can do that one. I feel like Jack the Ripper's been done to death. History of Scientology, we could do that one. I feel like we could probably do Scientology. I probably would end up getting in some sort of like follow trouble. You're always coming up with ideas on your stream. You can't remember any of them. History of Moose Paradoxes. We need one more. Yeah, the Scientologists do get pretty harassy. Got to start taking up your notes on French and English relationships. Ooh, you're going to have to give me a more narrow window of French and English relationships, and we'll take that one. That one is 2 seminar classes long. Give me maybe a 100 or the 100 Years' War. Wait, let's just do the 100 Years' War. How about that? And there's going to be a lot of British and French relationships. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm about to hit start the poll. If you are in the room, I don't care if you are following. I don't care if you are a sub. I don't care if you're a VIP. If you are in the room, you get to vote. So we've got like 40-something people in the room right now. Everybody gets to vote. I'm going to start the poll right now. All right. So above you in the chat, you click the little down caret, and you will get to see the poll. And everybody gets to vote. It doesn't matter. Like I said, you don't have to be a sub. You don't have to be a follower. Everybody can vote. You get to vote. Like if you were here right now and you're listening to me ramble, you get to vote. But you're going to Thailand. Do that. Well, it was like one of those squeaker things, and we just... Everybody... I voted! Maya Verzini gets a cool sticker. You start the poll and you start the dancing. Woo! I didn't... Well, it came up in my chat. French and English relationship before Thailand. So I'm looking at my chat right here. And it showed up in my chat over in the Twitch control board too. So if it showed up differently there, I apologize. All right, we only have a few votes. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 votes out of 30 plus or 40 people. Everybody go vote. Seriously, it's easy to do. You're not guaranteeing that you have to come back. It's just something that we like to do to get everybody involved. So if you're still here, you go vote. Thailand is always having coups. Plus, I would have to narrow down Thailand too. Like what era of Thailand? Don't boo, vote. Yeah, there we go. Protective spirits. Oh, what? Oh, wow. I'm missing a whole conversation here. Ask Christopher Cant. He lived there for a year or two. You went just before COVID. Oh, you went to Thailand. God. Figment going to all these cool places. We need to hire a physicist to understand the Manhattan Project. We don't have to have a physicist. Beginnings of democracy in Thailand? Oh, so you mean like end of Imperial Thailand? Well, I guess Thailand wasn't colonized, but should go to locations in Manhattan and get your own adventure hat. Yes, Vern, you should totally do that. You could take Vern takes great pictures, by the way. If you're not following Vern on Instagram, you totally should. Takes really cool pictures from around the city. All right, the Manhattan Project has won. So our next viewer request stream will be the Manhattan Project, and we'll talk about Enrico Fermi and Robert Oppenheimer and I Am Become Death, the Destroyer of Worlds, and all that fun stuff. You're like 8 hours from one of the 3 Manhattan Project sites. So we'll talk about Los Alamos and blowing stuff up and nuclear. Well, shit. How did George? Nuclear bombs. We'll talk about nuclear bombs. That's a callback to the way that George Bush pronounced nuclear. That's how she got the name Gadget. Oh, see, I always assumed you named her after the mouse that was in Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, who was also named Gadget. Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers. I love that show. That show was the stuff. Good times. All right, ladies and gents. Anybody have any last minute questions, last minute point redemptions, anything that you want to get off of your adventure chest? Otherwise, we are about to go hit the raid buttons. What's in the news? Moose asks, what's in the news? Anything positive in the news? Moose, you're always asking me the tough questions. Like, is there good things going on in the world? Good things going on in the news. So the Ethiopian government decided that they were going to withdraw troops from the Tigray region. This was good news. So that is over here. Let me turn on the modern borders and labels. Boop-a-doo-doo. Over here to Ethiopia. We're going to zoom in on Tigray. Nope. Up here. Nope. Up here. Boom. So this region right here is the Tigray region. It had been previously under a pretty high-level insurrection. The troops from the government of Ethiopia had gone in with a lot of force to try to bring these rebels under control. There were accusations of crimes against humanity on both sides, but the government of Ethiopia has decided to withdraw and try to negotiate a ceasefire with the rebels in Tigray. So there's some pretty great news there. Of course, when you have situations like this, the majority of the people that are going to be hurt or killed are very likely civilians because they're going to get stuck in the crossfire because a lot of the violence is happening inside of the villages and cities in the Tigray region. So this is pretty good news. So there's some good news for you. I could probably think of something else if I sat here long enough, but it's I need to find a website that just does good news. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that I turn into or tune into just ends up being like, well, this place is at war again, or this place is bad again. So I need to look at some new news, some good news. The new DuckTales is kind of the bomb. I've heard that. I have heard that the new DuckTales is kind of the bomb, but I haven't seen any of it. Good news gets fewer clicks. Right, I'm with you. I understand that sentiment. And especially trying to get through American media filters, the good news from the world is even harder to see because the stuff that manages to get through to America from the global stuff is almost always the bad stuff. You're a diehard DuckTales fan, and the new one is indeed awesome. Tuna, it's all. I'm a weirdo, and you know how I am. So, all right. Okay, I think we are going to go ahead and kick off ourselves a raid. So, thank you so much to everybody. It's been a really great stream. I appreciate all of our new friends showing up to hang out with us. We had some really cool stuff happen tonight. We had Fidlia resubscribed. Thank you very much for that. We had a raid by Tayo Inoue, who is a math streamer. If you wanted some math in your life, go give them a follow. We had another raid by Red Jar of Jam, friend of the show. Brought in a lot of new people who have given us all the lovely follows. So Tayo Inoue, Chips and Churros, Neilon69, Sanbu, Var INF, No Muscles. Thank you all so much for the follows. I really appreciate those. And I hope that you get a chance to come back around and hang out in the adventure again. Our next show is 2 nights from now on Thursday. It's 1900 Central Standard Time. What got second place in the poll? History of the Police and the 100 Years' War tied. So I don't know what that means. Do they both get to come over to the next one? Perhaps. But we picked a viewer request topic for our next one. We'll be talking about the Manhattan Project. So come back by Thursday night. We'll be talking again about the end of the Han Dynasty and what happens when really good leaders give way to not so great leaders, and then the entire country falls apart. It happens. Carry them both seems fair. Yeah, I think we'll do that. And we'll just have 5 options instead of the traditional 4. We can do that. All right, but we are going to go and go kick off a raid, and we're going to go raid someone that we've never raided before. And this is going to be something that I'm going to try to do. I haven't had a chance to actually build it out yet, but one of the things that I want to do is try to raid people that we don't normally go raid. And that means that we might end up raiding some people that that we don't know, and that's okay too. I feel like we have a great community of people, and I feel like the people that tend to hang out in our community and come back around are really, really well-intentioned and really open-minded and great individuals. So I think that we can bring that love and that appreciation to some other folk. But tonight, we're going to go raid somebody that is a friend that has showed up in the channel, but we've never had an opportunity to raid her before. We're going to go raid Cami. Cami is an art streamer that does some pretty great animation stuff. Right now is doing some work on just some original characters. What if you spend the points for the police stream to make it easy? Tuna, let's wait until the next one. So we'll do Manhattan Project, and when I get to the end of that one, I'll let you burn the points if you want to. So yeah, we're going to go raid Cami. Our battle cry when we raid in is adventure, and adventure, and then lots of exclamation points. And if you have those lovely adventure hats that you can get from being a wonderful subscriber, if you have those adventure hats, throw those in the chat too. Otherwise, I will see everybody around. Thank you all so very much for hanging out. It's been a great stream. I really appreciate you all deciding to spend some time and talking history and having a good time and goofing off. But otherwise, I will see everybody on Thursday. We'll talk about China. It'll be good times. And I'll see you then. So take it easy. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Thanks, Sci-Fi.
I'm Spartacus.
We'll see y'all.